What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and today the conversation revolves around how do we make this bloke a cat? Now, the word came out, and look, we've kind of known this was a distinct possibility for 12 to 18 months by now. There's been lots of talk. I've been hearing behind the scenes that he'd wanted to be a cat going back to probably June, July of last year, and it was just a matter of kind of time more than anything else. And it turns out that Bailey Smith wants out of the Dogs. Now, there's been a lot of speculation in the days since this report emerged. And it's only been a few days since the exit meetings because, of course, the Dogs got bundled out of finals the other day. And then the next step for all AFL clubs is to have exit meetings with all their players to, I guess, signal their intentions or give players the opportunity to signal their own intentions. And so Bailey Smith entered his and basically disclosed that he wants to leave the Dogs at the end of the season, cited a whole range of reasons, which we're not necessarily going to get into now. This is not necessarily the time or place to kind of hone in on those. He's got some things that he's unhappy with in terms of the way he's been kind of utilized as a club, as a player within the club. He's, of course, had injuries. There's a range of different factors that lead him to want to leave the Dogs, and he wants to find a new home. The one thing that he didn't do was declare the club that he wants to visit. Now, I think we all deep down know that it's the Cats. And I want to take a moment here to acknowledge friend of the show, Swoop Luke. Luke, we love you, mate. I saw that you posted a video, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, basically talking about how the Pies might still be in with a chance. And of course, the Pies were a club that was being bandied around there. He's got some strong ties to the Dacos boys. And of course, the Pies being a serious contender are going to be in the race. Luke, I love you, mate. I really do. And he's been an amazing guest on Behind the Play. And we love working with Swoop in any opportunity we get, mate. He's not coming to the Pies. He's going to be a cat. The reason why he hasn't disclosed it is because the Cats are still in the race. And Geelong has been pretty bullish about this over the years. They don't want these sorts of interruptions. And we've had it once before. Jeremy Cameron, that all kind of bubbled to the surface, the club that he wanted to go to, and we were still in the midst of our 2020 campaign. And I don't know that it necessarily derailed it in terms of what ultimately happened with the grand final. But I don't think it helped either. That's just my stance. Anyway, the big question here is, how do we make Bailey Smith a cat? But before we do all that, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
So how do we make Bailey Smith a cat? That's going to be the real challenge here, I think, for the Cats, especially as our position within this final series continues to improve. Right now, we are a prelim finalist at the bare minimum, and pending any father-sons, academy picks, etc. Bids, everything that comes with all of those kind of quirks to the system these days. At best, we are pick 15, and that is bound to slide as the likes of Levi Ashcroft and many of those academy picks all start to come together. So it becomes, I guess, a tricky thing because Bailey Smith, I think at his best, most people concede he's probably worth a top 10 pick. But he's been through some off-field challenges. He's been away from football for a while. He's done an ACL. That diminishes his value undoubtedly. He's out of contract. And so the Dogs don't have as much that they can leverage in this particular case. But what gets the deal done? Because the Dogs have a brilliant midfield with or without Bailey Smith. We know this. They obviously had a bad game this particular weekend against the Hawks. But we know their list is brilliant. The Cats, this tops up a midfield that is, I guess, maybe one of our weaker links. And is certain, and not because we've got poor players, but because they are still developing players. The injection of Bailey Smith into that is huge for the Cats. So how do we get it done? Well, first I want to take a look here at our list and kind of discuss some of the things that we know. There's been some rumors and speculation about some other players, and then kind of explore things through the lens of picks and players and combinations of all of the above. We know that departing from the Cats this year already, guaranteed, Zach Toohey and Tom Hawkins. They've both announced their retirement. There's plenty of others here within this list as I scroll through the list. I don't really want to offer up names here, but I want to talk about players who might fit a mold that might be of interest. When we scroll through the list here, there's not many players that I could see the Cats really genuinely wanting to part with, because they're depth players. They're part of the starting 23, and to give away maybe a defender means that to bring in a midfielder means that we're sacrificing in one area to gain another, and maybe it's not worth it. Maybe we don't have the depth in that particular part of the field to justify losing one player to top up another. There's a whole range of different things here that I want to go through when we focus on the players on the list first, before then focusing to what I think is ultimately going to be the key piece of play here, the picks. So if we look through this list, to support what I said a moment ago, I don't really see any players here who are going to fit a profile of need for the Dogs potentially, but also the Cats are not necessarily going to want to part with either. And with the Cats / Bailey Smith having the upper hand here, Bailey Smith again being out of contract, there's no reason that the Cats need to go all in to bring him in the door, because they've got mechanisms. And the Dogs, if nothing else, Geelong might go, okay, well, go to the draft. Like, we may not get you, but go to the draft. And the Dogs, you're going to lose a brilliant player for nothing. And the Dogs won't want to do that. So they'll want to transact. They want to get something back for all that they've invested in Bailey Smith. Because why wouldn't you, of course, right? This is not a free agent, so there's no compensation. You're just going to lose him for nothing if you don't transact. So Geelong does have the upper hand over the Dogs here. And I look at the players, I go, okay, Reece Stanley, firstly, they've got Tim English. They're not going to want to transact there. Zach Tui's retiring. Brandon Parfitt is one of those players who's been discussed more and more in recent weeks as someone who might find himself leaving the club. Now, he's been incredibly loyal over the years, and I have a lot of respect for Brandon Parfitt for all the loyalty he's shown. He was, of course, part of the 2022 Premiership team as the sub, and has done some amazing things in a transitional period for the Cats. But he is struggling to make the starting 23, and if you add Bailey Smith into the mix, he is one that's potentially going to fall a bit further down the queue. And so he's, I'm sure, rightly considering his options. Whether that is to stay at the Cats or go elsewhere, I don't know. He's a name that might emerge. Tanner Bruin, no transaction. Jeremy Cameron, no transaction. Toby Conway, no transaction. Again, he's kind of the future of the ruck, and they've got Tim English. Sean Manor, doing brilliant things, not going to happen. Jake Cole-Jasny, career best season, in my opinion, not happening. Max Holmes, absolutely not happening. Mitch Nevitt, I mean, he just got 39 disposals in the VFL, and now lost to Southport, unfortunately, with about 22 odd contested. The Cats aren't going to want to transact with him. Mitch Edwards, I don't think he's going to do anything for the Dogs. Young ruckman. Cats won't want to part with ruckman, and it doesn't necessarily add too much to the Dogs because, of course, Tim English. Jack Bowes has been doing brilliant things. Jai Clark is the part of the future. Connor O'Sullivan is our first-round pick, part of the future. George Steve, there's a whole range of players who are in their first season that aren't going to hold much value, I don't think, for the Dogs at all. Not that they won't be brilliant. I think George Stevens shows so much potential. George, if you're watching, I genuinely think you're brilliant. I can't wait to see you out there for the hoops in the seniors one day in the coming seasons. So just to be clear for anyone, I'm not trying to, when I'm floating up or suggesting that they're not going to hold interest, it's not because they're no good. It's a needs basis thing for the Dogs. So far, we're up to the 15th player on the list, and no one really makes sense beyond maybe Brandon Parfitt. I'm sorry, mate. Sam de Koning. I mean, the Dogs would love to have him. The Cats won't let go of him. Lawson Humphries, first year, brilliant. Tyson Stengel, not happening. Phoenix Foster, key forward. But of course, the Dogs have Jamara. They have Sam Darcy. They have Aaron Norton. Doesn't fit the bill here. James Willis. Again, small. They've got a litany of small forwards. Ollie Wiltshire fits the same bill. Lots of small forwards, doesn't fit the bill. They're also he's also in his first season. Not going to transact. Mitch Duncan. Sorry, Mitch, we love you. Too old for the Dogs at this point. You're not going to move clubs at this point. Gary Rowan, no. Jed Buse, no. Tom Hawkins retiring. Ollie Dempsey, not happening. He's the Rising Star winner. Cam Guthrie, again, a bit like Mitch Duncan, doesn't fit the age profile the Dogs will be going for. Tom Atkins, no. Oscar Murdoch, no. Brian Myers, no. I look through this, and I'm not going to do this with every player now because I feel like I'm getting a little bit redundant. But there's most of the players here I look at and go, it's not going to happen. The Cats aren't going to want to transact, or the Dogs won't see the value in the player. I do look at one name here as being, beyond Brandon Parfitt, as being someone who might be of interest. Mitch Hardy accumulates the ball, has it on a string, has been doing an exceptional job in the VFL all season, but despite the fact that he's quite likely to be in the best 23 of the season for the VFL. The Cats senior team doesn't want to have him at the moment. He doesn't get some, now. It's too late at this point. He's I think opportunities for a debut in season 2024 with the AFL men, like the AFL team is done and dusted. I think, unless we're looking at a Marlon Pickett thing, I think his opportunities are done and dusted this season. But also, I don't know, as much as I think he's brilliant, there's clearly something in his game that the coaches aren't crazy about, or there's a deficiency that's not being rectified. And so he's not necessarily going to be of value to the Cats, but maybe he'll be of value to the Dogs. So maybe he's someone you can transact with because he's got value. And yeah, it kind of continues on there with a whole range of players that don't fit for a range of different things, whether it's age profile, whether the Cats won't want to let him go, or the Dogs, it won't fit the profile of the Dogs. So with that all said, it's probably down to turning our attention over to draft picks. Now, I mentioned before, how do we get Bailey Smith? Well, right now, the Cats could get, at earliest, pick 15, and I hope that we go the distance and we win the flag, and that would be amazing, but that pushes our first selection back even further. Probably back into the 20s by the time all of these father, sons, and academy picks are taken. So again, how do we get Bailey Smith? Futures are an option. Do we bundle up a late first, like a very late first, and a second round pick? Well, then transact with some of our other players that I've discussed already to maybe get some picks back. There's also a bit of talk about Jack Macrae, who I don't have a graphic for here. I'm not going to be bringing him up, but Jack Macrae has come up as another player who's looking to depart the Dogs, and the Cats are one of two teams. And I apologize, I can't think of who the other team was. It might have been Hawthorn, that were teams of interest to him, reportedly, because he too did not disclose the club in his exit meeting. And that is always suspicious. But of course, Hawthorn's in the race as well. Maybe they get knocked out this week and straight away it comes out that Jack Macrae wants to be a Hawk. We'll see. When I think about the possibility of bringing both of these players in, firstly, I'm not crazy necessarily about Jack Macrae because, I mean, he's a brilliant player, don't get me wrong, but he's 30 at the moment. And age profile wise, he probably fulfills a need because Danger's getting close to the end. And so you've got some of that experience there when all of a sudden Danger leaves and you're talking about your most senior statesman in the midfield being a Bailey Smith or being a Tanner Bruin, those sorts of guys. It would be handy to have someone with some years of experience. Tom Stewart, obviously, more as a midfielder these days as well. But it would be handy to have some experience there in the midfield. Jack Macrae fits that need. But I don't know if he's necessarily the best. I don't know if it's necessarily the best move, but does it help facilitate Bailey Smith? If that's the case, then let's take him. And he's certainly going to be additive to the team. It's just not maybe in the ways that everyone's going to love. So Bailey Smith could, and Jack Macrae, I don't know if his contract status allows it. And sorry, someone in the comments clarify here if he's out of No, he's midway through like a 5-year deal or something like that. He's got another couple of years left on his contract, I believe, which makes it a little bit harder to transact. There's no free agency stuff here. We're not getting him for nothing. I think we could potentially pull both of these players, but then we are talking about some messy picks. It might be 2 first-round selections this year's and next year's. That is a price I'm willing to pay. Bailey Smith is obviously one of these picks is going to be quite late, and if we bring in 2 players such as those two, we're right in the premiership race for 2025 up to our eyeballs as well. And so maybe 2 first-round picks is the right deal, or maybe a first and a second. Maybe we have to maybe some of these other players on our list that we will ultimately potentially transact on get us some picks that we can then use in a deal for Bailey Smith and Jack Macrae. It's a really fascinating one, but my current gut feel is maybe first from this year, second from next year. Just so that we can remain in the draft mix for this year, because we know how deep the draft is supposedly going to go this year. The top 30, I mean, there's the top half a dozen who are exceptional, and then 7 through 30, you could throw a blanket over all of them. They're going to be excellent players, reportedly. So Geelong will be wanting to be involved in that, at least to a degree. And so maybe one from this year, the first rounder from this year and the second rounder from next year gets the deal done. for Bailey Smith, maybe, and or Jack Macrae, who's absolutely out of vogue at the Dogs these days. They're my thoughts. I don't think players are going to be a part of it unless it's to transact for other picks that then we bundle up as a part of a deal. But I think Bailey Smith comfortably gets to the Cats, and maybe Jack Macrae too. We'll wait to see what both players say as the Hawks potentially get knocked out of the finals, or the Cats get knocked out of the finals, or if either team goes the distance, makes it the grand final, and we have to wait until after it to get an answer. That would be a traumatizing prospect as a Cats fan to have to play the Hawks in the grand final again. Let me know what you think. Bailey Smith, the Cat. Jack Macrae, the Cat. What does the deal need to look like to get these players, specifically Bailey Smith, through the door? Let me know in the comments. Hit us up on Patreon to check out all of our exclusive content, our early access content, and some of our extended content as well. You can subscribe for 7 days for no cost. Check out all the things we've got there, and then stick around after those 7 days are up for the cost of $5 or $6 a month. You'll get all of that same content delivered to your email inbox. We are on social media at the Hoops Crew. Myself, you can find at Paul James Games. Check out all the awesome content on the YouTube channel. And until next time, remain Geelong strong. Bailey Smith, we can't wait to have you. I'll see you later.